Josh Roberts.
How's it going, man?
It's good to have you here.
We finally made it work.
I know my schedule's been really crazy, so.
Mine as well.
And then everybody getting sick all the time has been really rough. So.
Well, that's kind of on the like last week when we talked about this. Like, if anybody even sneezes wrong or like has like a runny nose, like it's just everything. You know, you have to get them out of there. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And so we're like.
Are you talking about this at the restaurant?
At the restaurant, yeah.
Okay.
So we're just kind of, and we're such a short staff right now that I have to cover either. There's only a couple people who can cover. So like, either I'm working or I'm covering. It's kind of that's it. So.
Oh, so you're working quite a bit then.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, most of you probably will recognize Josh, but he is the head sushi chef. I can't even say it. Sushi chef at No Coast Sushi. How long have you been working there, man? You've been working there a long time.
So, June of this year, so we're in 2022, will be our 15-year anniversary. I helped build it as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then I did 5 years before that down at Sahiro.
I didn't know that either.
So like August 21st is my sushi anniversary. So it'll be like 20 years this year, which is crazy to me because I'm like, I've lived a lot of life in between now and then.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It's like half our lives, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Holy cow. Okay, how did you even go in that direction?
So, I moved down here. I'm from Craig, Colorado, which is like Arctic tundra, Northwest Colorado. Terrible.
Yeah.
It's actually beautiful, nice to go back and visit now, but whatever. I came down here to go to school, and I was a radio DJ when I was in high school. Like, that was my high school job, and then I did it for like about 6 months afterwards as well. And
was that for the college radio station?
That was the major commercial radio station in Craig. It was
in Craig. I'm sorry. Okay.
KREI.
Yeah,
and then I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm into this radio thing. I'm gonna go get my mass communication degree. And I came down and started going to school for it. And I was like, I know everything they were teaching me. I learned in like that first day. This is like such a waste of my time. And I've always loved history, so I was like, I'm gonna switch my major to history and still do like the KMSA thing and that kind of stuff. And at that point too, I'd been doing commercial radio for like 3 years. And like, I was tired of working every holiday. I was tired of like literally the day I graduated high school, I was on the air that night. I didn't even get to go hang out with my friends of graduation parties. I was on the air for like, it was a Saturday. So I was on from 6 to 2 a.m. on Saturdays. That was my on air shift. So I was just like, this sucks, man. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I switched to history just because I loved history. And I was like, at least be enjoying class.
Yeah.
And while I was in school, I worked there's a flow with this. Trust.
Sure. No, go ahead, man.
But I worked at the convenience store right across the street from the college, which was like a perfect job when you're in college.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, the Canyon Convenience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, and then a friend of mine was like, hey, we need a baker. Do you want to learn how to bake? I was like, sure, that'll work too. So I started working at Main Street Bagels, and I was a baker for a while. And then a guy that I actually went to high school with, he was a year older than me, and he was my best friend and roommate at the times. So my best friend's brother, his brother's best friend worked at Sahiro. And we went in there for dinner one night, and he's like, what have you been doing? What have you been up to, man? And I was like, well, I work at Main Street Bagels and bake now, and da-da-da. And he's like, would you be interested in learning sushi? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, no, really? I'm like, no, really? Like, absolutely. That sounds awesome. I said, well, coming in tomorrow for an interview. I showed up the next day, interviewed with Chris, and they're like, cool, you start tomorrow. Show up at this time, wear these clothes. And so I started apprenticing, and I did. The way that I apprentice people now is way different than like I was apprenticed. Mine was like, I would show up to work. There'd be a list of like things I had to prep, and then there'd be a pot of rice from the day old rice. And like, okay, do all this prep work for us, sharpen our knives, do all these things, and then start making nigiri balls until we get back. And so then I would, and they'd come in, and they'd be like, yep, nope, yep, and they'd just throw them away. They'd scoop because it was day old rice. They'd just toss it in the trash and they'd be like, okay, start again. And I just like, I had like the most old school, like as close as you can to this day and age, like apprenticeship that you can have. And so, but it was just like, I went to high school with this guy named Dirk, and he asked me, and that's how and then a few years later, Chris and his wife at the time, they've since split, but like we came over and like, he's like, I want to do my own thing. And his mom was super supportive of that. And we came over here and it's completely separate.
Yeah.
But like we opened No Coast, and yeah, that's.
So, I mean, there's an art to doing sushi. I mean, it's not just, well, maybe for, and I would hope, that
Definitely.
that you are compelled by the art of sushi as well. You know, I mean, when you do it for so long, I'm sure you're like, oh, I'm slapping another California roll for Troy, you know,
Right.
type of thing. But it's an art, and it's beautiful food. And so, were you ever captivated by that?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're a musician.
Yeah.
And so like art in general, like if you have that artistic like tinge in your brain, all those things, like whether you're into it and you're good at it or you're fascinated, like, just like before we started the podcast, like photography, like I've always just been interested in it and I love it. I'm not great at it, but it's just, you see art as how it is. And food in general is, well, with Japanese cuisine, it's so much more finesse because it's such a subtle thing. Like there's fish and there's the seasoned rice and that's it. So if the fish is bad or you don't season the rice properly, there's only two ingredients. Like there's rice, the seasoning for the rice, which is just vinegar, cooking sake, and sugar. And that's, every sushi bar kind of has their own blend. And then the fish. And so like if you do it wrong, it's very noticeable. You can't fix that.
Right.
In Italian food, if you make a marinara sauce and it's a little bit salty, you can add a little bit of this to fix it, or you can take away a little bit of that. But you can't do that because the simplicity is so huge in Japanese food.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. It's simple, but yet it's complex at the same time because you're bringing in so many different things. But and this is why I wanted to talk to you about this too, because I want to get educated on it. I get so enthralled with watching people put sushi together, and I want to know, like, what's it all about, And so I'm really intrigued actually that you were just talking about the rice and the fish. It is simple, but yet flavor wise, it's pretty complex. It seems anyways, or maybe not. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is. So think back to when you were in, like, I don't know, middle school or whatever, and you learn about like the taste buds, and there's sour and there's sweet and there's bitter. Well, some years later, there's another section of the tongue that it basically, the word that they use is umami.
Umami.
Which is like, I think it basically means savory.
Okay.
So it's the savoriness, like a portion of the tongue. And there's a bunch of different things who bring that flavor out, which it's a broad flavor. But like seaweed does it, like MSG, which for years and years was talked about as being a bad thing, but it actually isn't. They're like, oh, it causes headaches. It is this, but it doesn't. But like the Japanese were the first to really bring that umami, because it's such a simple thing. But like, how do we make this flavor bigger? And so how it kind of started was, like, a lot of people don't know this, but which is weird, but like Chinese were the ones that invented sushi technically. And so what they would do is they would take fish, put rice around it, and they would bury it in the ground for like 3 months. And they would let the fish ferment, and then they'd break the rice off of it, and they'd eat the fermented fish that way.
No way.
And so the Japanese were like, we love this flavor, we love this thing, but how do we do it faster? And so that's when like the rice vinegar kind of came about, and like doing it that way.
I never would have guessed that's how it started.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And they're all about like fermenting vegetables or fish or whatever, because if you think about it, like there's no refrigeration. So you had to either ferment it or eat it really quickly.
Right. And so And correct me if I'm wrong. So like the American sushi culture is on the fresh side of things, like eating it quickly, like for the preparation and stuff. Is that right? Or is there any fermenting that still goes on?
Well, I mean, so your soy sauce is fermented.
Okay, gotcha.
So like they take soybeans
Mm-hmm.
and they ferment it to a certain point, and that's how you get miso.
Okay.
And then like kind of the disregarded part of making miso was where soy sauce came from. And so it was like this like the runny goo that came away from the fermented soybean part.
Oh wow.
And that's where soy sauce came from.
Yeah.
So but then obviously since then they have these huge places they make soy sauce and mass produce it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a thing. But like it was kind of
It's like a byproduct of what they were actually trying
exactly.
to do. Wow. Holy smokes, that's so cool.
The US thing, obviously fresh fish became a thing. So in Japan, as far as sushi goes, when they got to a point, there's three groups of fish, how they categorize it. You have your red fish, which is like, it's the closest thing to red meat. So you have your tuna, and a lot of your game fish. They bleed a little bit more.
Okay.
And in the old days, that was more trash fish because, like, when it has such a high blood content, because they're a bigger animal, it goes bad faster.
Okay, that makes total sense. Yep.
You have your blue fish, which are like more like fish that have like very silvery skin. What's in that? What I'm trying to think of what would be in that category. I think salmon are even though it's like an orange, but salmon are technically considered a blue fish, and then you have your white fish, which back then would be considered like the best of the best. And now whitefish is like the lower end. So you have your red snapper, things like that, because they go bad less fast.
This is so intriguing,
I know.
dude. I never would have thought that that's the case. So it's complete flip flop now.
And now tuna is like the biggest thing in the world. It's like $1 million bluefin tuna.
Yeah. I watch those shows where they catch tuna, you know, and then they take it in and they get the sample, the core sample or whatever. And so intriguing. All I know is that, dude, when they fillet open that tuna and you see all of that thick red meat, oh my gosh, my mouth starts watering. I love it so much.
And it's incredible. And what's awesome with us is that we overnight all of our fish from Hawaii. And so it's never frozen. And so when it comes in, like I get this huge side, which I usually get about 15 pounds at a time. And we go through it that fast. We just never freeze it. And so I get that huge chunk, and it's just like, I cut it, and I've gotten...
That's beautiful, man.
It's amazing,
like, yeah. It's like so thick, and it's just meat, like just solid meat. It's so incredible.
Next time I do I do it basically every other day, sometimes every day, depending how busy you are. But like, I'll shoot you a message, you just come down. It's pretty cool because it's so I can do it so fast now. I've been doing it for so long, but it's such a it's amazing, man. It's so good.
You better text me on that, dude. Be like, yeah, Troy, come on over, and I'll be like, cool. So for the viewers and stuff, like my little studio here is just on the end of the strip mall that No Coast is at. So I have already been frequenting. Is that there? I've been pretty frequent to No Coast, and my pocketbook is showing it, but it's so good. And of course, I'm not even getting like the super nice stuff either, probably because I'm trying to be a little my pocketbook not be so hit hard. But I love sushi, and I know most people do, but man, it's just so cool. It's so neat. So you probably get to be kind of creative too. Have you ever come up with like your own role, or is it like kind of the standards?
I mean, you have your standards, you know, you're going to have, so yes, I do get to come up with my own stuff.
Sure.
But a lot of restaurants, you're going to have your rainbow or your dragon or your soft shell crab roll, which they call spider roll.
Yeah.
You're going to have those, but the good portion of our menu are specials from either me or other chefs. And so like we'll run specials periodically, and people just have an idea. Like the White Star roll like back when Chris was still working with us,
Mm-hmm.
he came up with that there was a place down on Main Street called the White Star Barber Shop, and they frequented the sushi bar in the old days, and he just came up with a roll for them, and that was so that's unique to Grand Junction.
Sure. White Star roll.
Yeah, so it's got like the spicy yellowtail hamachi, avocado on the inside, and then on the outside it has masago, which is the smelt roe, the smallest of the eggs,
Okay.
the orange, and then like tempura crumbs. And I bring that one up.
Sounds amazing.
It's my favorite roll. It's like since,
really? That is?
Yeah, it's one of those things that like I haven't gotten sick of that of almost 20 years. It's still my favorite roll.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Are you sick of anything at all, or?
During the week, like there'll be days and I'm like, man, I just want a cheeseburger, or
Yeah.
I just want a bagel.
Yeah.
But then like the days that I don't work, I'm like, man, I'm really craving fish today.
Yeah.
So it's being in the industry, like being able to like make what I want when I want and create and stuff, like that's huge. Like I don't like, even when I'm at home, sometimes I'll just come to the restaurant like on Super Bowl Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to time date this podcast. Is that all right?
It's fine, dude. Most everybody knows that I'm building up podcasts, and then we'll release them later. So,
but I was like, I woke up just craving orange chicken for some reason, and I know that's a crazy Chinese like, and most people think of it as like kind of cheap and like, but like there's just like real good Chinese food is made with really fresh ingredients. The same thing, like pretty much any cuisine. When I woke up, so like I was like, I don't have my own recipe, so I just came down to the restaurant. I just started working on like and kind of creating from scratch, like coming up with my own recipe and figuring it out.
for
And so
orange chicken.
yeah, and I did it, and then like I just brought it, like the leftover. I made it, and I was like, oh cool, and I brought it to my house, and the people who came over to the Super Bowl, they're like, this is incredible. I was like, well yeah, because I didn't
so
I didn't use any cheap ingredients,
Right.
So.
Yeah. Boy, fresh ingredients makes a difference. That's
Massive.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. So White Star roll is your favorite.
Absolutely, yeah, by
Okay.
far. So.
I'll come in. I'm sure I'll come in later this week, and I'll have you make me one of those. That'll be really, really cool. So sushi for 20 years. And is this like what you really, really enjoy? Is this kind of like?
Man, I kind of woke up one day and I'd been doing it for this long, and yeah, I love being a chef. I love being creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to be creative, and also it's different every day. It's not a monotonous office job,
Right.
or I don't feel like a zombie, like because
Right.
every day is going to be different no matter what, and especially since like the pandemic hit, some purveyors that I had to quit delivering to Grand Junction because they don't have enough truck drivers, or this place can't deliver this anymore, so I have to track it down somewhere else. And there's been some positives, there's been some negatives. Our green tea, we serve, like we have one of the best levels of green tea you can get, like worldwide.
Wow.
And the place we used to get it, they just quit being able to get it to the U.S. on a regular basis because it comes from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to track down a new source, which I found is some incredible company based out of Oregon.
Oh wow.
So it's I've gotten to find, and I made relationships with this company. They're like, hey, we have this, and this, and like, how do you guys do your tea? I'm like, we do it this way, and they're like, well, awesome, that's incredible. That's like the best way you can do. So like, I've been able to build these relationships with these other companies that I would never have if the pandemic wouldn't have happened. I would have been like, just keep doing it the same way.
Yeah. Holy smokes. I never thought that well, I know now, there's a lot of hindsight now, but like beforehand, like we didn't really know how all of this was going to affect us. And then now here we are, and good grief, man, it's like affecting everything.
On every level.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our fish is from Hawaii, and so we still have, but even then, like UPS and FedEx have just been, they're normally fantastic, but during this whole time, they can't hire people fast enough before they quit again.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they just don't have enough workers, or the workers don't care, or whatever. And so the box just sometimes I'll get 2 boxes of fish, and one of them will show up and the other one will be like 4 days late, which by then is no good.
Right. Oh, wow.
And so you're just like 30 pounds worth of fish, which is like $400 or $500 worth of fish, is just no good. And it's not on us, it's on them. But still, it's just a wasted product. It's such a waste and such a bummer.
Yeah, such a waste of good product. Such a good product.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the, not kind of, that's probably the worst part of it, is having to throw stuff away because it was, it didn't make it.
Wow, that's crazy. What was 2020 like for you guys at the restaurant?
We were very blessed. And so one of my best friends, he used to be my sous chef, and he took a job as our Shamrock rep. We use Shamrock. It's like one of our big food purveyors. Like most of our grocery comes from them. And between the two of us, we're like, man, things are getting kind of crazy. Like we should. And he watches like the trends, and he's like, oh, to-go boxes are going really fast, so you should order extra just in case. He's like, I don't know when we're going to get more in, and with everything going on. So between him and me, we really were like, let's just jump on all this stuff. The owner, Lisa, she's been like, I trust you, just do your thing. Okay. And so and all of our to-go boxes, like we try to be as eco-friendly as possible with everything. And all of our chicken, pork, and beef is free-range organic. The fish company we use is owned by a marine biologist, and so he's all about sustainable fishing practices. And so we just try to do everything as best as we possibly can. And so like all of our to-go boxes are all like the biodegradable, like made with corn or made with like different things like that. So but I just pre-ordered like 10 cases of everything. And so
where'd you store it all?
They were just stacked everywhere in the back, man. It sucked, but it was but we had to have that. And literally like 2 weeks later, everything shut down, and we were able to open for to-go, like takeout and delivery. But because I'd ordered so many to-go boxes, we didn't have to shut down or like not put things there, not do this and not do that. And so I ordered as much as I could. And it was kind of like, like when the stock market crashed, like the people who like saw it coming, they did well, and the people who didn't, they lost out. And so we just got lucky, and our customers supported us enough that we delivered, that we did massive amounts of takeout, and we were able to, we stayed about 80 to 95% of our average sales. We stayed right there.
No way.
Which is incredible.
Holy
we were so
smokes,
blessed.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And thankfully where we live, Grand Junction, like most of the people here were very supportive of local, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Like I can't say enough about how awesome the people of this community are. Like
that's cool.
Not even trying to be cheesy. Like they were so amazing.
Yeah. That needs to be, not that there's going to be tons of people watching this, but that needs to be said a lot more. I think you hardly even hear that at all.
People are just so cool, and it just, thankfully we're in a market where if you go less than Grand Junction, it's like a small town, like super small town, and if you go above us, it's just a super huge city. So we're just right in the middle. Yeah. And we have the best part of both worlds.
It's true. That's true. Right now, it's really cool. It'd be nice to have a couple more amenities, but they're coming in. I've talked to a couple people. Had a realtor on, and we talked a little bit about that, like what Grand Junction needs and what's already come in. And so it's a really nice place to be right now, especially when we're not dealing with so much regulation type of stuff too. It's been pretty lenient, which has been really nice.
Man, in the bigger cities,
it
takes 45 minutes to get to the grocery store just because of traffic and stuff. That would drive me bonkers, man.
Oh yeah. I know. I had a buddy that was working in New York. He was manager for one of the Walmarts over there, and if I remember, he said his commute to work was like an hour and 45 minutes, and then coming back was like well over 2 hours. So you've got like 4 hours out of your entire day that you're just driving.
Just sitting and driving.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're probably not even driving. You're just sitting most of the time. So just crazy to me, man. Yeah, that does bring up a really good point. That Junction is super solid place to live. As a young person, I don't necessarily know if I liked it that much, but
So you're from here?
yeah, I grew up here. Yeah, I'm gonna die here, man. That's what I tell everybody. I'm gonna die here.
It's not a bad thing, man.
No, it really, really isn't. Tough, tough to be. Sometimes tough to be a photographer. It's pretty saturated. You
Yeah.
know? But other than that, it's been pretty cool. But there's enough work out there though. It keeps everybody busy.
Well, like, I've been all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled a ton. I've toured a ton, and like when I play music and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's nice to come back here. It really is. Like, and I know that it is every kid. I don't know every kid, but a lot of kids, especially like artistic side of things, they're like, I hate my hometown. I don't ever want to go back there.
Yeah.
But it's just like at a certain point, you're like, it is what you make it.
It's true.
It really is. And so, I mean, people act the same way no matter where they're at. It's just like from Craig, everybody hates Craig. They want to move to either Denver or Grand Junction.
Right.
When you're in Grand Junction, everybody either wants to move to Denver or Salt Lake.
Right.
And once you're in Denver, all my friends there want to move to either Portland or Seattle or New York. And it's just like, it all just goes. It's just steps.
Yeah. Like it's that grass is greener
Exactly.
type of feeling, but it never is, man. Yeah. I think that's a good point. You know, enjoy where you're at and make where you're at the best that it possibly can be. And we do have a lot of great things here. We do. It's really, really cool. Right on. So yeah, the store. So yeah, going back to the pandemic. So locals really helped you through that. And then did you guys ever run into supply issues then? Like was last year more of a supply issue than it was like 2020?
It's continued on a little bit. Certain vendors were like, they just raised their minimum. You know, they're like, if we're gonna do this, we have to do at least this much every time, which wasn't a huge deal for us.
Mm-hmm.
Other places got better. They're like, our minimums, we're just doing away with that, which again didn't really affect us, thankfully. One of our companies still hasn't gotten delivery people back, so we're still kind of just like,
Wow.
I have to find it other places, which is a lot more work on my end.
Mm-hmm.
But
did you guys run into staffing issues?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people didn't want to come back to work. A lot of people, now that people have gone back to work and stuff, they are getting paid more because people are like, we have to do as much as we can.
Yeah.
So they're picking and choosing. But then a lot of people, like, they sat for so long that this is a bad thing to say, but it seems like they got so complacent and so almost lazy that when they come back to work, they're like, well, I don't really want to work anymore.
Yeah.
And so some people got really comfortable with not having to work, which is fine.
Sure.
But like, and then some people got like, the people who are very agoraphobic and don't like crowds and like very socially awkward, they really got awesome during that time. And then, you know, the people who are very social people really struggled. So it kind of, you know, crossed over. I don't know, man. It's one of those things that I don't know what it was damaging to a lot, and it was great for a lot.
Sure.
But I mean, you can take good out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, especially because if your personality is really driven, there's a lot of opportunity for you right now. Tons of opportunity. You can get a job anywhere you want right now. And so it's really easy and that's a little bit of a mindset too. Like, but sky's the limit right now for quite a few people. I mean, you could really get yourself set up. As crappy as the economy kind of is right now, you could still, not that things will normalize or whatever, you know, but you can set yourself up right now for when things maybe at least plateau and kind of get back to normal, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way to say that, but gosh. Yeah.
Well, a lot of things happen all at once too, like not only the pandemic part of it, but also the minimum wage hike, which isn't a bad thing. by any means. But instead of being like, oh, let's raise it slightly every year, they like didn't raise it at all for a zillion years, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna raise it $10 an hour.
Yeah.
And so all these small businesses were just like, oh my gosh, like we can't, like, trying to find that middle ground of like, it should have been being raised slightly every year,
Right.
with inflation and cost of living and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't. And so, which isn't small businesses' fault, it's from the top down, obviously.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really deep conversation for another time. But,
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, I'm glad people are getting paid more, but obviously we're seeing inflation's up like 7.5% or something like that, which is crazy.
It's nuts, man. It's
and so
super
it
crazy.
affects like why does my cheeseburger cost so much more? Well, this is why. Why does my whatever? And so it's and it's going to take some time to adjust. And it's either going to, or it's going to. I don't know. I don't have a.
It's never going to go back. That's all I know.
I didn't go to school for that. So.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I super enjoy going into the restaurant and seeing you guys and talking to everybody there. It's a really good. There's a lot of good people there right now. So it's,
we have probably the best staff, and I'm sure that if anybody listens to this, they're going to be like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm not part of that staff, but like this is probably the best staff I've ever had."
Really?
It's incredible.
That's
everybody
cool.
wants to be there every day. Everybody works really, really hard. And I've apprenticed like 35 different chefs over the years, and the ones who weren't really that successful at our restaurant went on to be like kitchen managers at other places because they just learned so much and they had so much. Which is awesome for me to see, because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, man, they're just not getting it, or they just don't care enough. But then they go on to be really successful in other places.
Yeah.
And so, but like the people we have now, I have a perfect blend of like some old school people and some new school, like some young kids, and it's awesome. So
that's cool. How many chefs do you have underneath you?
7, I think.
Oh wow, that's a whole lot more than I thought there would be.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, 7, I think.
I was thinking maybe 3, 4.
So we usually have like lunches. It's usually just me or me with one other person, and at dinner there's always at least 3, and then on weekends there's always 4, and there's always 2 in the kitchen.
Okay.
And so then you feel like if there's 4 up front, 2 in the back, then there's 2 that are have a night off.
Yeah.
So
everybody's on pretty much on the weekends.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so if somebody takes a day off, then somebody else has to work, and so it's just kind of.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to get people on board, and like, if you work in a French style, kitchen, which is like most, you're Italian or like any, like your French style is kind of one way, and there's Asian style. There's like basically just 2 styles. There's like a left and a right.
Yeah.
But if you've had that training, like teaching people Japanese cuisine is so different, because they can't just fix like I was talking earlier, like it's such a subtle, like the Japanese just do things so much different. Like they have so much less sugar in their desserts, and it's very lightly sweetened, or it's very lightly salted.
Yeah.
It's like they don't have those extremes. They know how to just like tone it way down.
Boy, that is interesting, because it seems like everything these days is just more flavor to it. And I guess the nice thing about sushi is that the flavor hits you, but man, it's in a creative, artful way, I guess is the best way to say it. So let me ask you this. Have you ever gone to a sushi place and you're like, man, this is just out of the park awesome?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where are those places?
So I try and eat sushi everywhere I go.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But the 2 best sushi bars that I've ever eaten at, like, are the 2 most random places. One makes sense. It's in Ocean Beach, California, and the place was called Miso Horny. But they were incredible, and they're very similar to No Coast, and that fact that they do as much sustainable as possible. We switched to black cod instead of the eel. That's where I learned it from. Is from like they were doing that, and I was like, this is awesome. And I was on tour with my band at the time, and we just happened to just walked by and wasn't even hungry. We're just like, let's just try it out. And so, and the other place is a sushi bar in Heathrow Airport in London.
In the airport?
In the airport, but it was like there was a wait for people to get in because it was so good, and it was so fresh and so incredible, and the chefs were just on point, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is an airport sushi bar. And I was so shocked.
Yeah.
But it was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that the place, where was it, in California? Did you say California?
Yeah, it was in Ocean Beach, California.
Ocean Beach. Was it a nice place, or like was it fancy? Typically, when I think sushi, like the places are pretty nice, like it's and a little bit swankiness to them, a little too.
It was very similar to us, like, but they, being where it was, like they had like the garage doors you could open up, so like you had like the ocean breeze coming in, super chill. We went in the middle of the day. We didn't go in at night, but it was just nice and chill. The sushi chefs, like, it was a good mix. It wasn't just like the old school Japanese guys, and it wasn't like it was, there's a good mix of people, like, and so it was probably the best I've had. And there's some great places in Denver. There's Sushi Den. There's Uchi, I think is what it's called, but they started in Austin, Texas, and they opened one in Denver, and they're pretty incredible as well. But once you can only get to a certain point, I feel like you can't get like, oh my gosh, I broke the mold when I did this one thing. It's just like you just have to do it amazing. So, and like with sushi bars, the whole point of a sushi bar is like, it's your neighborhood. That's where you go. You support where you live, and you go in there, and like you become a patron to this place, and you familiarize yourselves with the chefs, the wait staff, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
and that's exactly how I feel at No Coast, especially since I moved into this space. Yeah, it was really cool. I did some work for Lisa. I don't know if you remember that or not. I did some photo work for her years and years and years ago, and that was super fun.
You the one that did all the food photography?
I think so. Yeah. We did some food photography. I'd like to come in and do some more photography just to kind of freshen up on some of my food skills too. Like, I haven't done food in a while. That'd be super fun.
That one's hard. Food's hard.
Food is really hard
because you have to do like, a lot of those like fancy pictures you see are like all staged. With like, when they're like pouring milk, but it's really like Elmer's glue. So so it makes
it's
it
all
look
fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. But if you have the right camera setup and the right lighting and stuff, you can make it look good. So we'll have to do that. That'd be really, really cool. What did you order when you were at the airport? What did you order?
That one was a conveyor belt sushi bar. And
it was that good?
So, and I was like watching stuff go by. I was like, oh, what's that? And then like they also gave you a menu.
Okay.
And so I started to read through the menu. I was like, I haven't seen this for a while. Can I just order this too? And they're like, oh, you haven't seen it? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen one for a while. And they kind of looked around and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Well, I'll ask the chef. And by the time like it started to die down, like maybe people like had to go catch their flights. I had like an 8-hour layover or something.
Holy smokes!
Yeah,
that's quite the layover.
But I just kept ordering a couple things here and there, and I was just like so shocked about how fresh. But you figure one of the biggest airports in the world, you're going to be able to get stuff in relatively fresh.
That's true.
So
that's true.
And there's a ton of seafood in the UK.
Well, I would imagine. I would hope so.
But like a lot of the there's a lot of salmon and a lot of cold water fish like off the coast, like the northeasterly coast, basically from Scotland, like the North Sea. There's a lot of cold water fish that come from there, and so there's a lot of that stuff you get.
Okay.
So.
Wow. So is a conveyor belt? Is that what they call it? Conveyor belt sushi? Is that like a thing, or is that kind of like a niche of some sort?
It is a niche, but so. I think it was just like an extended take on what sushi traditionally is, which is fast food. It was one of the first fast foods.
Okay.
And so as people walk by, get a couple pieces of nigiri or a couple pieces of sashimi, and they just go on their way. And they're just like walking by. They just grab and go.
Huh.
And
that's cool.
And so, like box sushi is what they call it. Like is one of the first things that they just press. They put the rice in there. They put the fish. They press it down and they cut it into squares. And so that people just walk by and grab it and go.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't
realize
it was like that, but that's That totally makes sense.
Which a crazy, disgusting thing is, in the old days, they were very close to the water, and they had all these sushi bars along the waterfront, and there'd be like a communal. You'd walk by and be like, "Give me 2 pieces of this or 1 piece of this," and they'd give it to you. And there's a communal soy sauce. You dip and go.
Oh wow!
And then you'd wipe your hand on the communal towel because obviously there was no paper towels back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dirtier the towel, the better the sushi bar.
Oh wow, that makes sense because that means there's just a lot of people going there.
Exactly. And so so you'd think that everybody's just like dipping, eating, wipe their hands and go. And you're like, you think about that now, and especially in this day and age, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible.
Oh gosh, but that's all right. So is there a lot of conveyor belt sushi places?
I've only been to a couple.
Okay.
A lot of those are just the problem with those ones is there's less interaction with the chefs because there's like the bars elsewhere, then they just make things and put it on there, and then it circles around.
Yeah.
There's some floating bars too. They put stuff on like floating plates and
like in water, like
yeah.
Oh,
there's like
that's
a water.
Really cool. You can get really creative with that.
And which is neat, but it's also like you can make the bar bigger because of that. But then you don't get to build that rapport with your sushi chef, and so.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about building up that rapport and that kind of that relationship. I never put it together that the sushi bar, right, was kind of like the place to sit so that you could interact with the sushi chef. So you probably have all kinds of great conversation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And when I'm apprenticing people, like one of the things, because they always start off in either the dish pit or just on the fryer in the kitchen, and I'm like, you guys got to learn how to multitask, and I want you to do the same thing the same way every time, and then I want you to set your station up the same way, because by the time you get to the sushi bar, if you're set your sushi case up the exact same way every time, so you can just grab and do it. It becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
Instead of having to search for things and you can't really talk. I mean, you've come in and talked to me multiple times, and I'm still working, moving my hands because you get so used to things being in the same spot.
Right.
And you have to be social because I'm like, if you're not social, you're going to struggle because people want to ask you questions. They want to talk to you. They want to tell you about their day. It's like a bartender.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Well, that's funny because I'm a sociable person, and so I like having conversation. And I was always going up to the sushi bar. I ate at Sahiro's prominently for a while, and I felt like I was intruding, that I was distracting the chef from what he was doing. And even when I first started kind of coming back over here, you're working and stuff, and I didn't want to intrude, because I wanted to have all these conversations with you. But I guess now that I know that, I'll just come right up and just
absolutely,
yeah,
and talk to all of them, please. If they look like they're busy, take them out of their comfort zone, because that's what I want. I mean, they have to be distracted because they have to be able to be. I mean, they've gotten kind of spoiled a little bit. Like the guy, my chefs who were a little bit more shy and stuff. They've gotten spoiled because of the pandemic.
Right.
Like they haven't had to deal with customers as much.
Right.
So it's, like in the old days, we had a full sushi bar, tickets coming in, waitresses and waiters talking to us, like all these things going on. And we've really limited it quite a bit because it did get out of hand for a while, but like the traditional, like customers would be buying you shots of sake or beers, and you it's out of respect, you do that shot of sake with them or a beer with them. And that's, you have to stay sober enough to continue to work and be effective, but also you have to entertain, because you're entertainment.
Yeah.
It's about entertainment.
It really is. Especially, I love just watching you guys make the rolls and stuff.
And you have little kids coming in, putting their, getting up there and looking and watching, asking all sorts of questions. And you're going to answer the same question 30 times in a week. But you know what? That's part of the job.
Absolutely.
And I like it. It's almost like you're performing, but.
Yeah. Well, it is. Absolutely is a performance. And that's I guess one of the things I wanted to talk to you about too, is it gives you a chance to kind of entertain and let's show off, which is really cool, especially for the creative types. They love it. Right on, man. All right. So sushi chef for 20 years, but you also are a musician. And when did you kind of dive into the music era?
I've been doing probably, safe to say, like about 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
Got my first guitar when I was like 15.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super weird to say the reason that I wanted to play guitar was Green Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so at my age, like I knew, and everybody can do this thing, like, well, I knew them when, but like Kerplunk from Green Day was my first Green Day album.
Okay.
And Dookie wasn't even out yet. And my best friend's like, hey, you should check these guys out. And I was like, okay. And I went to visit some family, and my uncle was like, he was playing it. And I was like, hey, that's Green Day. He's like, you know who Green Day is? And I was like a little kid. I was like 9, 10 years old. And he's like, I have an extra copy. So he gave me an extra copy of Kerplunk on vinyl. And my dad had a record player because at the time, back then CDs were like really expensive. So, and that's kind of my introduction to punk rock. And then like the Clash, or the Sex Pistols, obviously, which I was never huge into the Sex Pistols, but Stiff Little Fingers, and I mean the Ramones a little bit, but like Green Day was kind of where it was at. They were more poppy, and so that's kind of where it began. And then MXPX was a thing, and so I became a huge fan of them. But I just stayed, and now I'm at way more. I mean, it's way more wide than that.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I was like, I love this thing. There's something that feel that guitar, and I've just been doing it ever since. Really,
that's really cool. So then you were also DJing too, so you got to play all the stuff
like,
that you really liked.
I remember debuting. I think you could probably research this and find out. I'm sure it's somewhere, but I debuted in Colorado. I was the first person to play What's Your Age Again?
Really?
Like in Colorado, like on Top 40 Radio was like, because like radio stations, like they send all that stuff out. And I was like, at the time, my program director, I was like, that band's awesome. And I remember hearing that song, like they were on tour, like, and they hadn't put it. They're like, this is one of a new one. And I'd heard it because I saw them Blink-182 play, and I was like the Boulder Theater, I think, and and I was like, this song's awesome. It's gonna be awesome. They're like, okay, I'm gonna let you play it, but if it's not, then like, and so he kind of like, and I think that we got, because of it, that radio, like if you're the first so ever many radio stations to play it, you get when they get a gold record, you get a gold record to hang on the wall. If they go platinum, you get a platinum. Yeah.
And you did that.
Yeah, I was like, this is an awesome band that I'm a big fan of. And so, because I've been a big fan of them since when Dude Ranch came out. And like, so when was the Enema of the State came out, it was like, yeah, well, this band's awesome. And so I was like, I couldn't believe that a band that I like, this like poppy punk band that was like not that big and then so, yeah.
Are you an Angel and Airwaves fan then?
I don't like how Tom's voice is like the echoey chorus thing he puts on his voice drives me nuts.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm like, I can listen to it, but not, it just, I'm like, if the vocals are funky, I'm not a big fan.
Okay.
Like to this day, like I can't stand Andy Vedder. So like people are like, you don't like Pearl Jam? Like, I don't like his voice, man. Sorry.
Oh, I do like Angels and Airwaves. I like how big it sounds. I like how big.
I do like the anthemic.
Yeah.
That's why I think that like 30 Seconds to Mars, a lot of, like I love that band.
Yeah.
He doesn't put too much.
Right.
He doesn't put too much on his voice.
He's got a lot of rawness to it too.
Yeah, so that's why I like it. And Tom's the same way. I wish he didn't put so much on his voice. But
yeah, they're coming out with a documentary, or should be coming out with a documentary within the next like 4 or 5 months. Sorry, I got to clear my throat. So I'm pretty excited about that, but I use Angels and Airwaves a lot when I'm working out. It's good workout tunes. But okay, so you started playing guitar in your teens, mid-teens, and then what was your first band?
You actually know the guy who was in the first band with Troy DeRose?
Yes.
Yeah. So Troy and me, both from Craig, And we started our first band called the Invisibles.
I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
And
gosh, it's like all starting to kind of piece together.
We were a 4-piece. I played rhythm and sang. He played. We didn't really have any lead parts. We both just kind of played guitar and sang, and then we had a bass player and a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then when our bass player went to Seattle to go to school, and then our drummer went to Boston to go to Berklee School of Music, because he's an incredible musician, still is. His name's Ian. Shout out to Ian. But he, so it was just the two of us. So we're like, are we going to continue to do this? Because I'm going to come down. He was the year above me, so he was already in school in Junction. I was like, I'm going to go with Troy and like continue doing this thing. So we found a new drummer, and I just switched to bass. I was like, yeah, I'll just switch to bass. We'll be a 3-piece.
That's right. I remember you were playing bass.
And so, I was never the biggest like bass, like walking bass line guy, because it's hard to sing and play those walking bass lines.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I play bass like a rhythm guitar player, kind of.
Yeah.
And so we just continued on with the Invisibles for a while, then changed lineups a little bit, toured intermittently, considering, and then, Troy graduated and our drummer graduated and moved on. So I started a new band when I started Sahiro with Chris. We started a Load of 45.
That's right.
And then Chris and me, we got our drummer, which is named Ryan. And then we ended up, Ryan was an incredible bass player, but he played drums just 'cause. And so when we finally found a good drummer, which is still the drummer I work with today, his name's Marky, Ryan switched to bass. I got to go back to guitar, which was awesome. And we did a million things with Load of 45. Like we toured the UK, we toured the US multiple times.
Did you really?
Yeah. I think at one point, I tried to figure it out. We did like 180 days over a year and a half.
Dude, that's awesome.
On the road. And it's like, it's kind of hard to do that when you have a full-time job and you have lives and significant others and pets and all that stuff. And I was into it. But man, I remember playing our last show in the UK. We were playing in Dundee, Scotland, and it was the last night of a tour. We did like 35 days, I think. Wow. And some of my best friends live over there, and we toured with them over there and here in the US as well. And I was just like, I just want to go home and sleep in my own bed. Like I'm done. And I'd hit a point, man, and I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so we did some stuff after that periodically, but because Chris and me had also played in Bad Karma Kings. We had a ska band for a while too.
I do remember that. Yep.
So we had that band mixed in the middle.
Yeah.
And so we played so many shows for so long that I think we were just burnt out.
Burnt out, yeah.
And then everybody kind of just went their own separate ways, didn't quite. And so since then, like the drummer and me, Marky, we started Cloak and Dagger Club. And that's the band I've been in for the last few years. Okay. And it's so much fun. It just we do it because we just love the music.
Mm-hmm. Are you doing covers, or are you mostly doing your own stuff?
All original. We do some covers, but we just it's Marky and me have always been into that real 90s Fat Records stuff, and so like more like No Use for a Name. Okay. And it's just more like the melodic, like fast and awesome and fun. And so we went that direction, and we added a guy named Toby who has First Street Tattoo, like right in the same complex.
Okay.
So like Toby, he's the owner there, one of the owners, but so it's just the three of us now.
And what does he do?
He plays guitar. Okay. I went back to bass, unfortunately. And we were a 4-piece for a minute too, and then our bass player moved to Denver, so I was like, I'll just switch to bass. I did for years, and so we've been doing that.
That's really, really cool. That kind of reminds me of the brief conversation we were having about the music scene here in Grand Junction. And I didn't want to go into it too far because I wanted to make sure that we saved that conversation for this. And gosh, man, when we were in like our college days, there was music going on everywhere.
Everybody had a band. Yeah. Which is awesome. Yeah. And everybody played with everybody, and there was all sorts of stuff. And like a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Decker, he had a band, SMA.
Oh, dude, SMA was awesome.
So
I love those guys.
And he played in another band, and they got a band together specifically to come to Craig when I was in the Invisibles. Okay. To play a New Year's Eve show with us. It was like the Y2K thing. Okay. And I can't remember the name of that band, but they put it together just for that kind of thing. Uh-huh. But But then like SMA and Kevin recorded the first EP and then some extra stuff for Loaded 45 all those years.
Yeah. I think I remember walking down into Kevin's basement and you guys were packing up and loading.
Yeah,
I vaguely
I think that's where I
remember
met
that.
you.
Yeah.
It was that house he had behind that Wells Fargo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, I think that's right. Gosh, man, that brings back tons and tons of memories.
But like we played like they were more of a. It was him and Jim and Isaiah or Isaac,
yeah.
Which, and they were like kind of Beastie Boys,
yeah.
And so we played shows with them.
Yeah.
We played shows with reggae acts, hip hop acts, like metal acts. Like we just played. Everybody played together.
Yeah.
Back then it didn't really matter.
I can't believe I'm forgetting this. I'm forgetting all these names right now. Joe, Saxophone Joe. Do you remember?
Lion Vibes?
Yes,
Yeah.
Lion Vibes. I loved Lion Vibes. And Joe, man, he ran Old Chicago's there for a while, seemed like. And
pretty much ran that band too, right?
Yeah, he did. And then he moved. I couldn't believe he moved away.
Well, they went to Denver, didn't they?
I think so. Yeah, they went to Denver.
And they tried to do it over there, but and Mike was the singer.
And then almost everybody came back except for Joe, I think is what happened.
Him and his wife, because wasn't his wife in the band as well?
I don't remember that. I don't remember. But they were fun. They were definitely. I didn't know that was his wife. I guess I didn't.
I think that they ended up getting married because I ran into him a few times. But
okay.
I think it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. But there was just a really cool music scene, and a lot of local bands. And then in our conversation that we were just having, I was like, "What's the music scene like now?" Because I'm far removed from it. I haven't been in music for, any music that I was in was church stuff, and so Sunday morning was kind of like that was my full-time gig. That was what I was doing
worship.
Yeah, and I haven't been doing that for like 4 years now. So kind of just diving into the church scene, and no longer really doing like the music scene in town.
Right.
Five Face Down, we were playing for quite a few venues in town. Most of it was like youth group stuff and things like that, but a lot of shows down at the Avalon and a couple shows at Mesa Theater and things like in places like that. But the majority of them were probably like for youth groups. But I still knew who was around and who was playing. And then like I kind of got out of that scene. We were no longer a band. I got out of that scene and I was just involved in the church scene. And then all of a sudden I was like, what's going on with music in Grand Junction? And I was like, hardly anything is going on. The only thing that you ever really see is acts coming in.
Yeah, and I was just getting ready to say it that day that we were having that conversation, and you're like, hold off.
Yes.
But there's not. I don't know why, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, or maybe it's just not as prevalent. But when I think we're close to the same age, probably. Like when we were when we were younger, like there wasn't that. Like that was one of the things to do was like be in a band or like skateboard or ride BMX. There's other things to do, and now there's so much. I don't know, that it doesn't seem like there's the drive to be creative anymore, or I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's all digital, isn't it?
Yeah. I know DJing, like being a DJ, is like skyrocketed because everybody DJs now because it's so much. You can do it by yourself.
Yeah.
But
is there a big DJ scene here though?
I don't. That's never been my scene, and I don't think so.
Right.
But like,
because you never hear of like big. I don't know what you call them, like a rave party, I guess.
Right.
At Mesa Theater, I don't really hear of anything like that.
But back then, like, there was like the guys who were playing the big shows all the time. Like, if Real Big Fish came, like, I mean, we played with them several times. So we were the band that like, oh, those guys are always playing with Real Big Fish,
right.
Or like they're opening for, when Sum 41 came, or like whatever. And then there's the high school bands who are like playing with us, and we would headline the local showcases. and then so then like those upcoming bands, and they'd start learning, like, and there was a band called The Beef, like when I was early on in Loaded 45, and they, like, their bass player was a guy named Shan. I'm pretty sure he was in The Beef, and he became our bass player back Karma Kings. And his best friend was a guy named Joe, who became our drummer back Karma Kings. So it's just like everybody just, when you played shows together, as long as you were cool. I mean, they're cockier kids and stuff, but as long as you were cool, you worked towards something, and like, oh, let's do something together. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do a different kind of music.
Do a project. Yeah.
It wasn't that, like, I like punk rock, or I like ska, or I like metal. It's like, let's do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like I was always a big fan of hardcore, and especially like that East Coast hardcore scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to be in a hardcore band, but I've never been able to find the people to do that with. And now I'm in a band with people who would be into it, but it's just like we're not going to switch styles midway.
Yeah.
And so but I think that the thing is that you're not getting the high school kids who are just into that doing it as much.
Yeah. There's just the younger generations aren't bringing anything. I think that's what you said in our previous conversation, that there's just no up and coming, I don't know what you would say, a field of musicians or anything like that.
And you get those band kids who are super nerdy and super just kind of like, that's just what they do. And they may, one of them might play drums or just percussion or play trumpet, but they also might like, like Less Than Jake or Real Big Fish, and like, or whatever. And that leads them to, like in our day, you'd get the liner notes of an album of a band you liked.
Yeah. And
you'd be like, oh, who's this band? Who's this? Because they're thanking all these bands, and that's how you would learn about new bands.
Right. That's true.
And now, like, you can just go on Spotify and be like,
but it's all just singles.
It's just a single. And like, I'm just going to listen to this one person, and that's what I'm going to listen to.
Yeah. And then you'll just hit singles of all these different bands, and I don't know, there's just no synergy. It doesn't seem like there's synergy in music anywhere as far as genres go. Because even if I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this genre, within like 7 to 10 songs, I'm listening to something crazy.
Right.
That's not even within the genre anymore.
And really, I mean, I don't know I think you can, but I don't know where, but CDs are kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
They don't even put CD players in cars anymore.
Right.
But vinyls made a massive resurgence.
It was really interesting.
And so, I've collected vinyl for a super long time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's a problem, really. That's one of my problems. But like, when you buy a vinyl record, it's that next step past of like, because you get it, because you want the artwork, you want the liner notes, you want to be able to feel that, and there's a warmth to it And so I think that there is a big group of people who are into that, and hopefully that gets people back into, the analog life, I guess, to say, like,
sure,
like just playing guitar, playing bass, playing drums, whatever it is, just playing piano.
We have both of our boys learn how to play piano, and the thing that I always tell them is, you're going to turn 28 years old, and you're either going to be thanking us that we had you do that and stick through it till they graduate high school or whatever, or they're going to be wishing that they had.
Exactly.
And that's how I felt. I mean, I was just like, I didn't really take any piano lessons or anything. Gosh, I remember taking piano in college because it was part of my music degree. And I was just like, why didn't my parents make me do piano? It's just pretty interesting.
I took lessons like way, way later in life. And I remember being a kid, and I have 2 younger sisters, and my mom signed them up for piano lessons, and they hated going. They didn't want to go. They never did anything with it. And I'd always be like, I'll go, Mom. I'll go. Oh. And she's like, haha, yeah, whatever. Oh, no. And I became like the music guy. And I like to joke with them, like, I'm not that kid that's like, you didn't do enough for music, kid. I like to mess with my parents.
Right.
And I remember being in England and like calling to check in and be like, hey, I'm doing this. And they're like, we're so proud of you. This is so awesome that you're doing this. And my dad's like, be careful. But I'm like, hey, remember that time that you didn't take me to piano lessons? And my mom was like, stop, like just to harass her, because it's like she knows now.
Yeah.
And they've been amazingly supportive in everything that I do. And you're a parent, like, like you can't do everything right every time because you don't know. Like,
Right. No.
People can be like, here's a playbook, but it's going to be different for you.
No, it's, yeah.
Yeah, but like I took piano lessons way later in life, and I've always been more fascinated with that than any other instrument.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, because it's so much. It's like learning a new language.
It's complex, man. And my 9-year-old he's super genius kid anyways. Like, he's super smart. I'm bragging on him without trying to brag on him, I guess. But maybe hopefully in a humble way. But he's learning it, man. And I watch him play, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing to see him getting it, because I remember struggling so much, and he's just like, and I was like, keep going. And I tell him that all the time. But man, it is complex, and for all of the piano players that are really good. I mean, there's different levels, just like there's different levels of anything. But for those people who are just exceptionally good, it is
incredible.
One of the most beautiful things. And, going to Mesa in the music department and seeing a lot of my friends who were at that level was just, it's crazy, man. Just crazy to be able to put a piece of sheet music right in front of you and play it. And we're talking integral music too, like super technical. And
I didn't learn, I can read music, but it's kind of like I took Spanish later on in life, and you can kind of speak Spanish, and the more you're submerged in it, like the more it comes back to you.
Oh yeah.
And I can sit there and like I can figure it out, but I can't read it fluidly. Like,
oh, I can't. I'm like, ding, I'm plinking it out.
Yeah. And so, but people, like, that's a language. It's a foreign language, man.
It's
Learning to read music that late in life, especially. But when you're young, you just get it, and you're like, oh, no big deal.
Yeah. I don't think I could. I just wouldn't learn it quick enough. I get so frustrated. I'd need to be a sponge like my kids are right now to be able to learn it. How old were you when you dove into trying to play piano?
Like 32.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like one day I was like, a girl that I knew, she played in a local band, The Grotto. Remember?
Yeah.
So Michelle was her name, and like she was setting up one night. We were playing a show with them, and I just started talking to her. She's like, I give lessons. And I was like, cool. Well, I'll call you on Monday. We'll set something up. And she's like, awesome. So I started doing lessons with her before she moved away. And man, she was great, because she was like, we're both in that independent music scene. So she was kind of on the same level as me. And I kind of do wish now, because she was pretty chill, that I had the old lady that was just
Isn't that crazy?
That would slap you on the hands with the ruler, like, no, perfect
Technique,
posture. Like, because I think that would have been more helpful. But then when she moved away, like, I kind of just fell out of it. And I mean, I bought an electric piano with like the weighted keys and everything. I still have it. And I still get on it every once in a while and like play. And there's apps and stuff you can do. It just, as life goes on, you just like, wow, I went 6 months just now without even turning that on.
I know.
Unfortunately. And
or
so
you blink and all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh. Yeah. Yep. That's so true. That's cool though. Like I know enough so I can help my sons where they're at now, but that is going to be a thing of the past probably within a year, especially with my 9-year-old, because he's incredible.
Which is so awesome, because man, it's such like, I mean, guitar and bass and like all that's fine, but like, man, there's something about piano by itself that is so beautiful. Like, you can't just sit there and play bass and sing a song to it. Like, you're just like,
yeah.
I guess you could, but it's not the same.
It's not. No, to be able to accompany yourself is, Seth Schaefer, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, music genius, dude. Gosh, I'd get so frustrated with him because he'd just be like playing anything and everything that he could, And of course, he writes a lot of his own music for his own film stuff that he's doing now, and he's done that for a while. But he's just like, yeah, I'll just play this, and just kind of goes off. I'm just like, you suck.
It's like somebody like Ben Folds who just, you can do that one person and their piano, and it's like it sounds so full and so huge and amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even need a band, man. You don't. It's crazy. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens now that things are, well, I think things are opening up. I guess it's safe to say things are opening up now to see if the music scene's going on. But I don't really even know like what's going on at Mesa Theater.
We played there quite a bit.
Have you?
The new
like recently?
I think we did our last show was, I want to say November.
That's recent then. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'd started recording, and our guitar player, like he got COVID, and then he had some tattoo conventions out of town, and then his lady had to have surgery. So there's just been like multiple things that just compiled, and when we all have our own careers, and so it's like we do that secondarily.
Yeah.
But when you get to a point where we all have, it's just we do it for fun, and we do it because we enjoy doing it. And I can't wait to get these songs recorded, because honestly, as long as I've been doing this, the songs that we're started working on are some of the best stuff I've ever written.
Really?
And I just really truly found my groove as a songwriter, and the guys that I'm working with are just, they get it. They're like, okay, I hear what you're saying, because I can build the foundation of a song really well. I'm like, it's like A, B, C, boom, 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 verse, chorus, bridge. Like I can build those parts, but building all the accents and the lead parts, like all the frosting on the cake, so to speak. I can bake a cake great, but decorating it, I need help with that. Yeah. And there's some of the best people, like our drummer. I mean, he's an incredible guitar player too, and those guys write music from the music side of it, and I write music from the lyric side of it. And that's what I've always been, like the lyric guy. And so it's the perfect mix, because they're like, oh, I get what I can do here. But if they bring in a song, it's hard for me to write lyrics over the top of it, because they don't think about what they have to sing over they have to sing over this at some point. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And they already have these like lead parts written. I was like, okay. So, I mean, that's harder for me. Yeah. And so
I really respect the fact that you can write songs though. 'Cause I mean, for as involved in the music scene that I was, like writing just was never something I was good at ever. And actually I think in the band, that's one of the things we struggled with most, I think, was just producing some of our own material. A lot of our own material. And we were also trying to find our identity too. Like we were a punk rock band, moved into like a progressive rock band, but we were still a worship team band, So
now that band was
Five Face Down.
Okay, and that's what you did with Kevin, right?
Started with Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, and he was. I remember that, because I remember you guys went and played like a big college show, like in Durango, or something at the time. He was telling, because that's what
Gunnison, I think,
or maybe Gunnison. Yeah. And I remember him like, hey, I got this big show this weekend, like, and I think that is when he was living on that house up in the Redlands, and you stopped by at one point too, and that's how. Yeah. You kept talking about this, like I feel like I know like what band he's talking about.
Yeah, I think that was the basement that I remember coming down, and you guys were like loading out because you just got done recording.
Okay, yeah. So that was when I was in Loaded 45. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. We had that big show in Gunnison, and that was at the time that was the biggest crowd that we'd played in front of. Yeah, there was like 2,500 people. We were like, yeah,
it was amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes a fun show for sure.
Did you guys do? I mean, besides cover, but did you do a lot of just praise and worship music as well?
We did, yeah. Okay. And I guess kind of I don't really want to talk too much about me, but that is what kind of put us on a regional map. I guess was more of the worship stuff, but we were actually right in the middle of writing a really kick butt prog rock album there was some good songs there, like that even today I can say I was pretty proud of, but things just kind of fizzled out, and so we never finished it. But It was
Life happens, man.
yeah, a lot of life happens for me. It seems like, but yeah. So it was a really really good run. We never played out of the country, but we played from San Diego to Nashville, you know, and everything in between. So it was pretty fun. It was a good time. But yeah, and I'm in this weird music funk now. Like I don't know if I ever want to do music again.
I mean, like I said, like I came back and I was burnt out, and like
Yeah.
I didn't even. I remember we did one small like regional tour after we got back from the UK with Load of 45, and I mean I set it all up and everything and planned it all out, and we were like a machine by then. We were just clicking,
Yeah.
like, and like set up to tear down, just everything. Like
Yeah.
we just did it was so perfect and after that, man, I didn't even like listen to music hardly at all for a while.
Really?
Almost like I started like just listening to podcasts or whatever. And I needed a break
Sure.
from everything, and it just like, and then like refining that love for music.
What brought it back? And I'm asking on a very personal level because I'm having a hard time even trying to get there.
I think for me, I think the biggest thing for me is, so I love live albums. Some people hate them, some people love them. And I can't remember who came out with a live album, and I was like, oh, I like this band. I picked it up and I listened to it in headphones when I was setting up for work one day, and it brought back that, I was like, that itch.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And it just started bringing it back. And so I started listening to things that I'd always loved, bring back these old records, and these records that sound huge, because I like that massive, huge sound. And like I'll bring it back to Green Day, like American Idiot. Well, that's what it was actually.
Okay.
They came out with Bullet in a Bible. It was like the live album that they put out after American Idiot.
Yeah.
And I was just like listening to it one day, and I was like, man, this sounds massive. And like these guys love each other. They've been in a band together since they were teenagers. And it's just like, these are my friends. We always did it because we were friends going on vacation together. That's what we always said that we were going to do it as, because we all had careers. You know, like we'd gotten past the point of this is what we're going to do for a job. Like, but we just kind of just fell into that. And I had to remember, this is what I did it for. And it just kind of just brought me back. And so I just started playing acoustic again on my own. And then, yeah, it just kind of just started falling back into it. And I was like, man, I missed this. I missed that feel of that crunch, that open smash, that first chord when you're just warming up.
Yeah.
And just that warmth, that you're just like, wow, that energy just comes back.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It never quite goes away. Like you just never.
I need to find it, man, because I don't know.
Maybe the Angels and Airwaves thing, like, because you like that band. Like,
yeah, and I do really like music documentaries.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah. I guess for me, too, it's, obviously the performance side is what really drives us, being able to perform and entertain. And, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Plus, I also feel like I'm getting old, but.
I feel like I'm getting old too, but like you just do it because you want to.
Yeah.
And you play.
Do you listen to Devin Townsend at all?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, you need to listen to Devin Townsend.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of prog rock a little bit. Well, it is, but his influence in music is very, very broad. He sounds classically trained, like opera classically trained, but he is screaming with the best of them at the same time. And I don't necessarily know where he's at now, but he has a huge underground following. Kind of like Dream Theater, you know how they have that underground, just huge underground. They're not mainstream whatsoever. but their underground following is just massive.
Right.
And so he has this huge, massive following, and his vocals are incredible, and his songs, he's very theatric though, and I'm talking like theatric with a lot of his songs. So you'll be listening to this crunchy, hard prog rock song, and then the next song is this goofy, silly song that you think came off of Disney, So, but he pulls it off. It's really, really cool. So Devin Townsend, yeah, check him out. It's broad, very broad, but super talented. And anyways, the reason why I bring him up is because I can't do the screamo stuff. I just don't have the voice for it. But I think everything else that he does, I think I could probably pull off. But I don't want to talk about me.
No, man. But that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
That's what's awesome about doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Is you just take it with conversation. It's like I don't know what your time limit that you do on these things.
I typically go for about an hour and a half. So,
but like you just kind of just let it go.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I've done 3-hour ones and sometimes I've done 45-minute ones, and it just, you just go. Cause if you try to, I think if you try to cut it and do things or rush it, it feels rushed.
Yeah. Yeah. I want it to definitely be as organic as possible.
Which this has been super fun, man. It
Yeah.
really has. Like I've been stoked. I know we just kept missing each other a little bit, but I'm super chill. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's fun to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, and you get to a point where the organic part of it is like you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we're recording this.
That's
And that's the goal.
Yeah, that is definitely
we
the
talked
goal.
a ton about, Schmo Rogan. You can't really like say that word without getting cut out of YouTube anywhere these days. But it's like that's what I love about him so much is that it's like he just brings people on, just talks.
Yeah.
Just has a conversation, and that's like the best part. And he just listens.
Yep.
And so like whether that person's talking or he's talking, like whatever and that's what's awesome about
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I want to do. I want to try to build up network. I want to build up cool, tight friendships, local stuff that people can come to. And so hopefully that's what this is going to do.
No, I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked. I'm thank you for having me, man. It's been awesome.
That's what's really cool though is I grew up here my whole life, and so I'm just through my daily, weekly routine. I'll just run into people, and we'll start having a conversation. I was like, this needs to be on the podcast, and that's what I tell you. I was like, let's stop having this conversation now because I want it to be organic later. But and so far, like I run into all kinds of people, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to do this. This sounds really, really cool. So I'm getting scheduled out, and actually just went into Heart Music yesterday and was like, I should do a podcast with Jan and Aaron. Like, that'd be super cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, they've been here forever, and they've been in that building forever. And so I'm sure they've got all kinds of stories, especially with their location, with the artists that have come through their store. And
especially since at this point, Back Porch is closed, Roper's closed.
They're all closed. Mesa's gone.
Mesa's Music's closed. And
Yeah.
they're the OG, man.
Yeah.
And they're still incredible. They still walk in, they still say hi to me.
Yeah.
All these years.
Yeah.
I remember I was 18 years old. I wasn't even living here yet. Going in to buy strings to practice, in Troy's house over by the college, and they've always been incredible people.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like
they are. They're really. I've had my highs and lows with them, and I'll bring that up if we get a chance to bring it with the podcast. But as I've grown up, I guess is the best way to say it. As I've gotten more mature, I'd like to say it's been really, really cool. I've sent a ton of money their way over the years, tons of money, and I still am, So they're really, really cool. So, well, man, we're coming up on an hour and a half.
Awesome.
I'm pretty pleased with this conversation. This was really great.
Man, I had a really good time.
Yeah, it was super fun, and I look forward to eating lots more sushi over there. And
I don't know when this is going to come out, but this year is No Coast's 15th anniversary.
Okay.
And so that week, it's going to be in June.
Okay.
Is our anniversary. That week, I think actually Lisa was maybe talking about doing a photo booth again, things like that.
Sweet, yeah.
yeah, so that's really awesome that we've done that so long. We're going to do a bunch of celebrations because it's kind of a big deal. Landmark year 15. So that there's that.
That's cool. Yeah, I would imagine that this will come out sometime either late next month or April.
Cool.
So right now my goal is one a week. I'm going to release one on every Monday.
Nice.
And so we'll just kind of see what goes. And then my goal is to grind it through for 3 years and see what happens. Like, so.
Yeah, I think that especially locally, it could be, I mean, once you start building that and then bringing people back too, like we noticed, like bring people back around for a second time. And
and I've actually talked about that too.
Which would be really, like it's just going to grow.
Yeah.
And like this is an easy, very comfortable room, which is going to be is massive.
Cool.
So
that's cool. It's a little warm in here right now, and I'm a little worried about the summer, but
I feel great. But
okay. Josh, thanks so much, man.
Thanks,
I appreciate it, and I look forward to coming back and revisiting this at some point when it's big and famous, and we can be like, "Hey, we were one of the first."
Heck yeah, man! Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, man.